Hey everybody, for this video we're going to be returning to the work of Oswald Spengler, and in particular we'll be focusing on the second volume of his book, The Decline of the West. Spengler is famous for breaking with the version of Whig history that we're so familiar with, the idea that history is always progressing towards some kind of greater end goal. Spengler does not believe that newer things will always be better, that things will always improve. In fact, he believes that history is cyclical, that each civilization is destined to go through a particular life cycle in which it is born, advances, and grows around some kind of particular metaphysical idea or drive, sees that metaphysical animating idea come to full fruition, and then ultimately enters a period of decline. As you might imagine from the title of his work, Spengler notes a number of different features that signal the decline of a civilization. But today we're going to be focusing on his thoughts about plummeting birth rates and depopulation. It's no secret that Western civilizations in particular are seeing a significant drop in birth rates. The majority of major Western nations are now seeing birth rates that are well below replacement rate for their native populations inside the country. Many have speculated that this is a unique thing to Western nations, that it's a particular consequence of our decadence or our atheism or our affluence or many other things. And while I think it's fair to point all of those things out as contributing factors, Spengler says that this should not be a surprise, that this phenomenon is in no way unique to the West and should be expected when you see a civilization in decline. Many of us would look at a civilization that is at the height of its scientific knowledge, the height of its technological advancement, the height of its reasoning, and we would say, clearly this civilization is heading in the right direction. Clearly it is progressing. Clearly it is doing great and amazing things and will continue to do even more great and amazing things. But Spengler says this is not the case. He says that every civilization that ends up in this position eventually runs into a very serious problem that he calls the sterility of civilized man. Spengler says, quote, "This is not something that can be grasped as a plain matter of causality, as modern science naturally enough has tried to grasp it. It is to be understood as an essentially metaphysical turn towards death. The last man of the world city no longer wants to live. He may cling to life as an individual, but as a type, as an aggregate, no. For it is a characteristic of this collective existence that it eliminates the terror of death. That which strikes the true peasant with a deep and inexplicable fear, the notion that the family and the name may be extinguished, has now lost its meaning. The continuance of the blood relation in the visible world is no longer a duty of the blood, and the destiny of being the last of the line is no longer felt as doom. Children do not happen, not because children have become impossible, but principally because intelligence at the peak of intensity can no longer find any reason for their existence." Spengler believes that hyper-rational and individualistic cultures cannot justify having children with reason, because they see themselves as separate and brief individuals instead of an essential link in a great chain responsible for the continued existence of the whole. Spengler believes that investing one's life into procreation requires a metaphysical element of wonder, which is condensed into symbolism, custom, and religion, things that a thoroughly civilized man believes that he should discard. Spengler says, quote, "Intelligence and sterility are allied in old families, old peoples, and old cultures. Not merely because in each microcosm the overstrained and fettered animal element is eating up the plant element, but also because the waking consciousness assumes that being is normally regulated by causality. That which the man of intelligence most significantly and characteristically labels as natural impulse or life force, he not only knows but also values casually, giving it the place among his other needs that his judgment assigns to it. When the ordinary thought of a highly cultivated people begins to regard having children as a question of pros and cons, the great turning point has come. For nature knows nothing of pro and con." End quote. Another factor in the decline of birth rates that Spengler identifies is the shift in preferences that males hold when selecting mates. and in the rise of a force that Spengler did not have this particular word for at the time of his writing, but today we would identify as feminism. Spengler says that in a declining civilization, men stop seeing marriage as a way to select a mother for their children, and instead see it as a way to select a companion for life. Freedom and autonomy become more highly valued as the experience of companionship becomes more central to the marriage than the making of a family. Spengler says, quote, "It becomes possible for a Shah to say that unless a woman repudiates her womanliness, her duty to her husband, to her children, to her society, to the law, and to everyone but herself, she cannot emancipate herself. The primary woman, the peasant woman, is a mother. The whole vocation towards which she has yearned from her childhood is included in that one word. But now emerges the Ibsen woman, the comrade, the heroine of a whole megalopolitan literature from northern drama to Parisian novel. Instead of children, she has soul conflicts. Marriage is a craft art for the achievement of mutual understanding. It is all the same whether the case against children is the American ladies who would not miss a season for anything, or the Parisians who fears that her lover would leave her, or an Ibsen heroines who belongs to herself. They all belong to themselves, and they all are unfruitful." End quote. Like I said before, Spengler does not think that this is in any way unique to the West and can be seen in almost any declining civilization, be it the Roman, the Alexandrian, the late Hellenistic cultures, and the Lausa. Spengler says that in a declining civilization, the parents of many children become a joke. They become low status, and this causes massive depopulation. First in the megacities, then in the provinces, and finally even in the countryside. At this point, immigrants or foreign barbarians are often blamed for the collapse of the society that comes, as they enter in and raid the remaining wealth, but this is only an option because the civilization has become so depopulated. Societies in this phase of the decline will often desperately implement policies that seek to repopulate their civilization, once they realize the mistake they've made, but at that point it's way too late. And we can already see some Western governments doing exactly this, implementing policies that incentivize couples to have children. But this doesn't work because the problem isn't really mechanistic. It can't be captured on some kind of spreadsheet and reverse engineered. The poison at this point is deep in the bedrock of the culture. As a civilization of rational and self-interested people simply cannot reason themselves back into a life of child-rearing and toil that they now fundamentally believe is beneath them. Spengler says, quote, "This, then, is the conclusion of the city's history, growing from primitive barter center to cultural city, and at last to world city. It sacrifices first the blood and soil of its creators to the needs of its majestic evolution, and then the last flower of that growth to the spirit of civilization, and so doomed moves on to the final self-destruction." Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, please go ahead and click like. If you're new around here, please go ahead and subscribe as well. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter or you'd like to support my work on Subscribestar, you can follow the links in the description below. You'll also find a link to the merch store if you'd like to buy something to support the channel. Feel free to share out the work if you like the channel, that always helps. Thanks for watching guys, and as always, I'll talk to you next time.